All right, fans, welcome to another edition of In Conversation. And today's special guest we got lined up here is none other than Greg Ross here from Epic Tantrum. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so you guys seem like you're really starting to get busy there with all the stuff you got going on. And one of the things we're going to mention here is the three shows you got lined up here. You got coming to our neck of the woods, as well as we'll start off with March 9th. You guys will be in Albany at the Linda.
Yep.
And March 10th, you're going to be over at Jazz Central in Syracuse.
Yep.
And of course, here in Buffalo, you're going to be here at the Cave on March 11th, Saturday. So tell us, yeah, how do these shows come about, and what can we expect at these shows?
So all three shows are with Nectar. So I don't know how familiar you are with Nectar, but Nectar's like, they're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Remember the Future, which is, I believe, their biggest album. So a German-based prog band made up of Englishmen. I don't know exactly how that all worked. And so these three dates, they'll be playing Remember the Future in its entirety. So that's exciting, I guess, if you're a fan of old prog music. And they have a very interesting light show that I don't know how to describe, but they have 6 projectors that project over them while they play and different images. So we're opening for them on all 3 dates, and that came about. We were supposed to play a show with them back in October, and they blew up the PA at the venue we were at, and so they didn't get to play. And in talking to them that day, they were heading up this way and asked us if we wanted to open, and we thought sure. So it'll be fun night and some great music.
All right, sounds good. So you guys where are you based out of, and how did you guys all get together?
So we're out of Syracuse, and I guess our origin story all starts with a guitar teacher in Syracuse named Gordon Moore. So Peter, Paul, and I all took guitar lessons from Gordon Moore. And Peter and Paul were his golden students, and I was the one he threw out of lessons. So they play guitar in the band, and I play bass. And so we met through Gordon, and the band, Peter and Paul, were recording classical music pieces together, classical guitar pieces, and decided to kind of keep. They were enjoying working together, so they decided to keep going, and that was sort of how the initial band started. And Z would come in and play some drums, and they kept looking for a bassist, and they asked me to play bass about a dozen times, and I kept saying no. And one day I was bored on a Sunday, and they said, everything's set up. You don't have to do anything. You can just come in and, just play. And I went, all right, what the hell? And I thought it would be that way all the time. And now I have to go in and actually set up my own equipment and everything. So, they lured me in with false promises of easy gigging, and I'm bitter to this day.
All right. So give us a rundown on everybody that's in the band here.
Well, as I said, so I play bass. Peter plays guitar and sings. Paul plays guitar and keyboards. And Z is our drummer, and no one knows his real name. I think he's in witness protection. So, yeah, I think I knew him for about 2 years where I found out his first name, but he just goes by Z. That's how everybody knows him. So, yeah, so it's the 4 of us, and we put out an album in January of 2020. It was our debut album called Abandoned in the Stranger's Room. And if any bands who are listening are looking for some career advice, the best thing you can do is put out your album 2 months before a global pandemic starts. It's great for your career. So we played a record release show here in Syracuse that we did at the IMAX theater. So we played inside the IMAX theater, and we had videos and all this stuff projecting while we were playing. And then 2 weeks later, we were scheduled to go down to New York City and do like a real record release party, with like an industry release party where we had press and radio and all this stuff set up. And 3 days before that is when like the world stopped. So we had to cancel that at the last second, which made for a very interesting launch to an album. So it's been a challenge, obviously, to get word out about the record because we had plans in 2020 to do shows throughout the summer, and everything got canceled, like for everybody else. And it's hard to, once that machine sort of stops, to get it going again. So we're excited to do these three shows, and we've been recording new material, so we're hoping to get that out soon, and then go back out and play more.
Now, on this first album, how'd you guys come about writing the material? Like you got main songwriters or how do you go about everything?
So for the first album, a lot of it was written by Peter and Paul, where and they would just tell Z what to play. They would really just say to Z, play this, and then to me, play this. I didn't really know how to play bass, when I started. And I mean, I know if you play guitar, you kind of know how to play bass to a degree, but not to be a good bassist takes some time. Not that I'm saying I'm a good bassist, but um, so the first album was kind of a little bit of that. Um, the new material, it's all very different. So it's more written like a band. So whoever comes in with an idea, it sort of starts there, and then the rest of us pick it apart and put it back together, and it sounds different from the original idea. But kind of keeps that kernel of inspiration going. So that's kind of how the material's gotten written. The first album is a double disc. So the first side, Abandoned, is studio tracks, and then In the Stranger's Room is live. And I wanted to do that because I felt like when we would play live, we were a very different band than we were on the album and in the studio. And I wanted to present both sides of the band. And you can hear some of the differences in the song as we progressed, playing them more as a band instead of just like a studio project. And I think now the band is a lot more dynamic. Not saying that we weren't before, but I think the newer material is a little bit more uh, energetic, just because it's being written in a band setting. And we'll be playing some of the new tracks out on these dates with Nectar.
Nice. Now, did you guys get a chance to do any of the writing for the new material during the pandemic, or was it well after?
During the pandemic, we didn't really, we'd already started working on new material. Um, but during the pandemic, obviously we didn't get together to practice. I think we were all kind of writing stuff, but we did a couple of interesting things. We did two virtual concerts. So we did one called Six String Salute, which was with, oh, there's some huge names in there. And I'm blanking on all of them right now. It was like the guitarist from Alice Cooper's band. There was someone from Kansas Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Soul Asylum. It was kind of a lot of great bands. We were the only unknown band that was asked to be a part of it, and so we did a video. It was one of the first times we got back together after being quarantined. We ran into the studio and we recorded us playing live and edited a video for this virtual concert. It was a benefit for Live Nation had a charity that was helping all the stagehands and the crew, and so this was a benefit to raise money for the crew. And then we did another virtual show with a organization called Sea of Tranquility, and so we did the same thing for that. So we went and played a couple of songs live, and that was more prog oriented. So it like had one of the guys from Marillion doing his solo thing, and Uriah Heep was in there, and I don't remember all the bands because I'm brain dead at this point. But so we did that, and then they did a bonus edition, so we were in all of that. So basically, coming out of quarantine, we did that, and we played a show at an outdoor venue, which was very odd because like people wearing masks, but it was outdoors, and it was very kind of tense. And then after that, we started writing. It's hard because like we all have day jobs, and we all have lives. So it's like you start writing, and then life interrupts, and we record in our own studio. So if you want to see so our studio is called The Stranger's Room, which is kind of where the album came from. So we had been working on the album for years, and there's a saying that art is never finished, it's only abandoned, and it's attributed to a lot of people. And we just kept tinkering and tinkering. And when you have your own studio, you can just go, oh, this sounds terrible, and no one would care but you. So we find, we kind of had to abandon the album, and that's where the name came from. And then the Strangers Room, that's what our studio was called. So if you look on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page, maybe you can see the videos and you can see what our studio looks like. It's probably more impressive than the band itself.
Well, I see you guys are getting a lot of people call you like a perfect blend of prog and metal, and then I seen some comparisons to Rush and stuff. How do you describe the band if you're like trying to explain to somebody, what you guys are like?
Um, I mean, it depends on the person. If it's someone who's like a pop fan, I usually just go with you, you'll hate us. If I don't really know how to describe us. I kind of at one point, during a break in rehearsal, kind of said I think we're probably a prog band, and everybody looked at me like we're crazy. Prog to me is like a catch-all term because prog bands will write ballads and heavy songs and big sweeping orchestral rock pieces. They kind of run the gamut musically. I don't know if the people at Prog Magazine would agree with my definition, but I imagine that's one of those hotly debated things. What is prog? I think we have prog elements. I think we have alternative rock elements. I think there's some jazzy elements. I don't know that they would be heard by a listener as jazzy. There's a lot of improv in our songs. Obviously, when we play live. So I don't really know. I don't know how to describe us. I've heard comparisons and none of them ring true to me. So I'll take a comparison to Rush any day of the week, and I'm happy to have it. But I don't know that that really makes sense. We do have the two guitarists in my band are absolutely world-class guitarists. I know it sounds strange. If they didn't live in Syracuse, if they lived in like Toronto, Nashville, New York, or LA, they'd be gigging musicians, touring guys. They just live here and decided to go a different route. So we're very much a guitar band. And, there are times when if I'm having a bad show, I'm just like, yeah, you guys just shred and I'm going to hide behind the drums for a little bit. So so we are definitely a guitar band.
Which song out of the the album there, which one would be the one you would consider your like at this point the definitive song for you guys?
Huh. Um, when you say definitive, I don't know that I think Letting Go is the track that for us is probably, I guess if we were trying to say like here's the blueprint of how we want to go with the band, it would be Letting Go.
Hmm.
Paul calls it a cinematic piece of music. And it's long and it kind of has two parts to it. There's a first part that's has lyrics, and then it goes into a long, drawn out sort of instrumental piece. There's a narrative to all of it. Um, I would say Letting Go would be like the blueprint of the band. And for us as a band, the first time we played out, we went to an open mic night, and it was no one knows our music, and a lot of the bands playing an open mic night are playing covers, and we're coming and playing these kind of dense, difficult original tracks. So when we finished Letting Go and there was this sort of loud cheer, it was kind of like this sigh of relief. Okay, what we're doing has some appeal. We're not fooling. We're not sitting here expecting the average listener to like what we do. Like this is not. We're not trying to be a pop band. We're not writing bluesy rock songs. This is music for a niche audience, and we get that. So when we find that audience, we're happy. So that night, so the Letting Go is kind of like both the song that we kind of see, and just because of the reaction that night, that's probably the one song I would lean on. The
Now,
song that gets the best response is probably Franklin Park Blues, which is the one we hate playing the most. So
isn't that weird how that happens like that
yeah,
sometimes?
yeah,
And I've heard other bands say the same, a track that they're not too fond of turns out to be the one that people want to hear the most.
yeah.
Weird.
We always say we're going to take it out of the set, and then it stays right there all the time. So
So how would you describe the new music? Is it just a continuation of what you guys have done on the first album, or is it taking you a little bit different direction?
I think the new music's a little more frenetic. I don't. That's kind of the only word that comes to mind. Um, I mean, it still sounds like an Epic Tantrum song, but I think it's more. I think we're playing more to the King Crimson elements of the band, but I don't know if that's even a real comparison. But you know, I think we've kind of played up the what makes us different more on the new songs. And I keep pushing, bigger, louder guitars. So, you know, I don't think the average listener was going to say if anybody listened to both or if anyone cared, and I don't know if anybody does, but I don't think they would say that it was much different. But I think it's just more guitar oriented than the last album. Not that the last album wasn't guitar oriented. And I think there's a different energy when you're writing more as a band than and we're playing these songs a lot. It's not like we're coming up with an idea and recording it. Like we're playing these songs, we're playing them out live and we're living with them and making adjustments to them. So I think the song kind of grows. And I think the way we played Letting Go 3 years ago at that record release party with the way we play it now is entirely different. We are not a jukebox band. Every show is going to be slightly different. The solos are almost all improvised. The songs have a structure and we know where they're going to go, but there's a lot of improv. So, we are every night's going to be different. And so, but even within that, like a song like Letting Go does not sound the same as it did 3 years ago. I think it sounds bigger.
Now, is your plan to put another album out, an EP, or just release some singles? What are you probably guys going to do here?
We had planned to have a couple EPs out in 2020. And then, of course, COVID hit. And then, when you're sitting with those songs in quarantine and you're listening to them, what we'd already recorded, it was like, I don't like that. I want to change that. I want to change that. So we scrapped all of that. I think we have 6 or 7 songs recorded in part. And after these dates with Nectar, our goal is to really focus on those. It's hard to do both. These songs are not easy to play. So it's really hard to I don't think we could go and take like 6 months and just work on new material and then go back and just do a show. Like we need some time to get those songs under our fingers. We've also done, I know our plan is to do tentatively a 5-song EP. That'll be 3 studio songs and 2 songs that are just improvs. And so we played with Pact, which is Alex Skolnick from Testament and Percy Jones from Brand X's band and a couple other guys whose names I'm forgetting, and I apologize to them. And they're just a completely improv thing. And we were kind of inspired by that, like the sort of walking that tightrope, like, can we pull this off? And so we decided that would be something we were going to try to eventually add to our live show and for the new record. So we will just go into the studio and someone will start playing and we hit record and just try to improv something that we think is worth it. So we have a couple of those that we're going to do, which is, that's kind of like I said, it's walking a tightrope musically. And when it works, it's amazing. And when it goes off the rails, it's a disaster, which either way, it's fun.
Well, you mentioned some of these bands. Who are some of your personal influences?
uh I mean, I don't know if you want to go down the who's Greg's personal influences route, because I don't know that you have enough time in your show. um but I mean, I'm a Rush fan. I mentioned Marillion, I love them. These posters behind me are all Manic Street Preachers stuff, so I that's a Welsh band that I worship and go all over. That's actually the Alex Lifeson from Rush's new album, which is an autographed copy of that. It's called Envy of None. But I also love like pop music as well. Like to me, Squeeze is a perfect band, and I'll listen to them forever and have listened to them forever because they just write perfect pop songs. So, but I actually, if truth be told, I come from a punk background. So the first things I ever did was punk, and I worked and ran a punk label for a long time. So inside of Epic Tantrum, you will always hear me trying to make the song more simple, and and then the next day complaining that it's too simple. So
Hey, you mentioned Marillion. That's an interesting choice there. All Marillion, Fish Marillion, Hogarth Marillion.
so if we're gonna do the Marillion era thing, I think the first 5 records, and when I say the first 5, the first four with Fish, and then the first with Hogarth on the Marillion side, and then Fish's first album. So like, the first five that they did, Fish, those are all, almost perfect albums to me. After that, I still love a lot of the Marillion albums, but I should rephrase that. I love parts of the albums. There's not one album that I love all the way through. There's parts of albums that I'll be like, oh my God, I love that. I love that. But there's not that sort of one. And it's the same thing with Fish. Like there's no one album that I'm like, oh my God, I love all of that album. But there's parts, there's elements, there's songs.
Mhm.
So yeah. So I mean, I love both. I probably listen to Marillion more than I realize. But I love both eras. You know, I think there was an energy that Fish brought to the band that, and I think on those first albums, those first, after Season's End and his first solo album, that there was like an energy that kind of I don't hear in those other releases. They may completely disagree with me, but I think Hogarth brings a I think he's a better singer, but and I think he brings a sophistication to the band that maybe Fish didn't have. But with that comes some of the energy. But both, there's tons of great, amazing songs on the stuff that Hogarth has done, and Fish solo stuff. There's a lot of great stuff, and I do think though Fish lyrically, I don't know that he gets the accolades that he deserves. I think lyrically he's just on another level.
Yeah, that's true. And it was because he was doing with the band for 4 years, the four albums. So, and then he went solo. So yeah, you're right. And because they weren't really that big over here at all. Just the last album that Misplaced Childhood was the one that kind of put them on the map, and then kind of like they faded away.
Yeah, I saw them in Rochester on the Clutching at Straws tour, and it was like a sold out 1,500 seater. Obviously they were doing much bigger over in Europe. It was probably the worst concert I've ever seen though. I wasn't really old enough to be at the show, and I probably shouldn't have driven there. But I went, and I remember Fish, I'd seen all these pictures of Fish, dressed in these ridiculous costumes, Peter Gabriel-esque sort of stuff. And he walked out on stage in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and he pulled an Alf doll out. And Alf, the old TV show character. In the middle of the set, he's like pulling the string on this Alf doll, and the Alf doll's like, "I eat cats," and he's like, he's cracking up with that big, laugh of his, and he thinks this is hysterically funny, and I'm sitting there like just almost in tears because I'm like, this is not the guy I'm expecting. And I'd actually had tickets to see them open for Rush when they were doing that tour, and they did not go over well. And so they left the tour, and the first show that they weren't on was the show in, I think, Binghamton. And so we had gone down there to see Rush back, I think it was maybe the Power Windows tour.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, that was pretty disappointing. But I still love those records. And obviously the band was falling apart, and he was drinking a lot, and it all came out on stage.
Yeah, so yeah, you like a good variety of music there, and it looks like I'm sure the other guys in the band have similar influences as well.
Yeah, I think the one band that we would all say we're heavily into would be Rush. We, like that's our one unifying kind of band. I'm sure you like, we're all Steely Dan fans. I don't know that I'm sure there's some Steely Dan in our music. I know that there's a comparison to that, and something where I was like, I don't hear that. Although I completely ripped off part of Asia in one of our new songs. In fact, I call it the Asia section. There's a lot of overlap. There's differences. Like I said, I'm heavily into the punk scene, which I'm really the only one into that. Paul is very into K-pop, which we all mock him mercilessly for. Peter's going through a Frank Zappa phase where everything is Zappa related. So, which I'm not a big Zappa fan. So, but I would say, Rush is the big one. I know, and I think we're all Porcupine Tree fans, although to different degrees.
All right. Well, once again, you guys are definitely it's gonna be a good show there with you and Nectar there. Anybody gets a chance to check these shows out, like we mentioned earlier, March 9th will be you guys will be in Albany at the Linda. March 10th, you'll be at the Jazz Central in Syracuse, and of course
So
the
that
Cape.
the Syracuse show is already sold out. If you want to
Huh?
see us, you would have to go 9 or 11. Yeah. Um, so yeah.
Nice.
And like every time, we asked friends, do you want to go? And got no answers. Now that the show's like a week and a half away, everybody's like, hey, we want to go. And we're like, it's sold out. So that's kind of fun. Um, yeah. So 9 and 11 are the only ones that you can get tickets for. And of course, Nectar, if you're a fan of that band, this is the show you want to go to, because they're going to play the big album in its entirety, which is really just 2 songs, because I think each side is 1 song, but it's like 20-minute song. So
Right. Right.
yeah.
All right. Do you anything else you want to bring up or mention here before we let you go?
No, if you are interested in going, you can find out about tickets from either epictantrum.com or nectarmusic.com, I believe, or just Google it. And if you like guitars and interesting music, come on out, and we'll definitely put on an entertaining show. And if you do come out, tell us that you saw us on this show.